If you were to ask the average McDonald's customer who founded the fast food empire, there's a chance they'd guess it was somebody named McDonald. It's also a very likely possibility that they'd answer Ray Kroc. While Kroc may have taken McDonald's to such a grand scale that its humble beginnings were nearly forgotten, it was brothers Richard and Maurice McDonald who truly were the fast food restaurant's founders, even though they are not the ones with the likeness etched into plaques on the restaurant's walls. This is the story of how one man rippled the good old McDonald brother and took over their brand. While the lives of the McDonald brothers were filled with success that would eventually afford them luxuries like custom Cadillacs, their lives were also fraught with frustration and defeat. The brothers lost out on a fortune and had their legacy all but erased for decades because of going into business with Ray Kroc. I remember him saying once when I was a teenager, "That guy really got me," recalled Richard McDonald's grandson, Jason French. The old adage that greatness is born out of adversity could certainly be true for Richard, Dick, and Maurice McDonald. The brothers were born into a poor family of Irish immigrants in rural New Hampshire in the early 1900s and saw their father struggle later in life. Their father, Patrick McDonald, had worked as a shift manager at the 20,000 employer G.P. Crafts shoe factory in Manchester when he was laid off after 42 years. The elder McDonald had been told that he was simply too old to do the job any longer, and the brothers saw their father face down unemployment after decades of hard work. Learning their father had been cut loose without a pension undoubtedly had an impact on the brothers, and they knew staying in their New Hampshire community wouldn't lead to a more prosperous life. "We made up our minds that one way or another we'd be financially independent," Dick McDonald once recalled. The tragic work situation that Dick and Maurice saw their father grapple with, however, was the push they needed to west with nothing more than a pair of high school diplomas and ambition to reach for something higher. According to the New England Historical Society, they vowed to be millionaires by the age of 50, exactly the opposite of where their dad had been at that age. The McDonald brothers didn't set out for California with visions of burgers and fries in their eyes. By all accounts, the burger business only came about after their venture in the entertainment business fizzled out. The brothers had dreams of directing and producing movies and landed themselves gigs at Columbia Movie Studios, doing grunt work on silent film sets for a paycheck of just $25 a week. It was hardly the sort of money that would make them millionaires, and without any more glamorous roles behind the cameras on the horizon, they saved what little they could and opened a movie theater. The brothers bought the 750-seat Mission Theater 20 miles outside of Los Angeles, put in a snack bar, and renamed it the Beacon. The 1930 opening of the theater couldn't have been during a worse time, and the brothers were constantly behind on their bills during the Great Depression. Hard times got so desperate that they even buried some silver in their backyard in case the bank foreclosed on the Beacon. After 7 years, the McDonald brothers called it quits and sold their movie theater before deciding to try their luck in the food business. McDonald's wasn't simply McDonald's at first. It was McDonald's BBQ. The food stand that the brothers opened in San Bernardino followed the pattern of other food joints of the era by catering to drivers in their cars. The brothers were even able to reuse uniforms from their failed movie theater for their car hops. Upon realizing that burgers were the top seller, the brothers scratched their working formula, temporarily closed their doors, and made some drastic changes when they reopened. The new McDonald's of 1948 had ditched everything that wasn't popular on the old 25-item menu, including the barbecue, and done away with the 20 female car hops. Customers were now expected to get out of their cars and walk to the counter to place their order. People weren't happy about the changes, and the once bustling business came to a halt. Customers would drive up and leave as soon as they realized a car hop wouldn't be coming over to take their order. Even efforts to stage a busy enterprise by having employees park in front failed to bring in much business. Had cab drivers and construction workers not slowly started to trickle in after several months, the McDonald brothers would have been failures yet again. Time has a way of playing with the facts of history, and that couldn't be more true when it comes to Morris and Dick McDonald. Both the movie The Founder and general public misconception about Ray Kroc paint the idea that he was the one who had the foresight to expand McDonald's from its original San Bernardino location. According to Smithsonian Magazine, not long after revamping the operations of their hamburger stand and developing the quick-serve method that would make them famous, the brothers were pulling $100,000 a year in profits. In 1953, a second McDonald's opened in Phoenix. After that, another popped up in Downey, California. According to the New York Times, by the time Kroc came to the brothers in 1954 to transform their burger joint to the global machine it is today, the brothers already had over 20 locations. Other estimates put it at 6 locations. Unfortunately for the legacy of the McDonald's brothers, the truth that they already had a successful franchise remains mostly ignored and is even glossed over by McDonald's today. At that time, diners and roadside restaurants were doing whatever they could to stand out among the pack and capitalize on the marketing of highway billboards. Dick hired architect Stanley Meston to design neon-trimmed golden arches that would rise from the sides of the hamburger stand itself. Paired with its Speedy Chef mascot, McDonald's had an eye-catching design that worked up until 1962. There is no question that Ray Kroc very much had a monumental impact in making McDonald's the fast food phenomenon that it's become. In his eyes, though, the McDonald's brothers largely seem to be insignificant to the history of McDonald's. Probably the most notable example of Kroc attempting to write the McDonald's brothers out of McDonald's own history would be in his 1970s autobiography, Grinding It Out: The Making of McDonald's. In that book, according to the Sun Journal, Kroc called himself the founder, claiming the birth of McDonald's dates to the first restaurant location under his name in Des Plaines, Illinois. Kroc wasn't happy, however, that the contract excluded the brothers' original San Bernardino restaurant and was furious he'd been cut out of the iconic and very profitable location. "I was so mad I wanted to throw a vase through the window," he recalled. "I hated their guts." Because the brothers no longer owned their own name, they changed the hamburger stand to the Big M. Even with the name change, Kroc was still sore over the deal and took revenge by opening a new McDonald's a block away. Within 6 years, the Big M turned off its grills and the brothers sold the building. "I ran him out of business," Kroc would say years later with pride. Selling a hamburger stand for $2.7 million in 1961 was a pretty killer deal, except as everyone knows, McDonald's is hardly the typical hamburger stand. Ray Kroc's initial franchising deal with the McDonald's brothers looked like this: a franchise fee of $950, with a 1.9% service fee assessed on food sales, 0.5% paid to the McDonald's brothers as a royalty, and the remaining 1.4% going to Kroc. By 1960, Kroc had franchised 228 McDonald's that were pulling in $56 million annually. The McDonald's brothers and Kroc had both become wealthy, but Kroc would become filthy rich when he bought them out in 1961 for $2.7 million. The brothers figured that after taxes, they'd each have $1 million. While that certainly wasn't chump change, had they never sold their business, by the end of the 1970s, their 0.5% stake would have been paying them $15 million a year. What's even more tragic, especially for the heirs of the McDonald's brothers, are the royalties by today's standards. Had the 1961 buyout never happened, a 2012 estimate found that with McDonald's $61 billion in sales, the McDonald's brothers' royalty fee would be $305 million. The McDonald's brothers had big dreams when they left New Hampshire and set off for California in the 1920s. They didn't plan to jump into the restaurant business, but they had lofty goals. The success that the McDonald's brothers had found on the West Coast eventually made its way back to New England, but unfortunately, it wasn't under their guidance. Once Ray Kroc was brought on as the head honcho for opening new franchises, McDonald's spread across the country like wildfire. Kroc's 1956 real estate subsidiary, Franchise Realty Corporation, FRC, was the gasoline on the fire that made the rapid growth happen. FRC owned the building but leased the land and charged rent on both. Despite taking 30 years to properly recognize the McDonald's Brothers, McDonald's senior chairman at the time, Fred Turner, said the company never tried to ignore them and passed the blame to the media for giving Kroc all the credit. "This founder business has become an issue," Turner said. "It's embarrassing." Unfortunately, Morris had already passed away before any corporate recognition came his way. After their restaurant, the Big M, was run out of business by a competing McDonald's, the McDonald's Brothers called it quits in the restaurant business. There was no much of a reason to stay in California any longer, and Dick McDonald eventually moved back to his home state of New Hampshire. "I never liked California," he confessed in 1985. "I never liked sunshine. Would get a cloudy day, I'd be happy." We hope you enjoyed our video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to our channel to get notified with all of our new videos. We hope to see you soon on a brand new update. Bye!